All right. So the thing about business is you can sell a great product, you can have great salesmanship, you can have an amazing offer. But if you're selling to the wrong crowd, if you're selling to the incorrect people, the incorrect market, then you're not only going to have a harder time making more money, you're just going to have a harder time just with everything. Harder time just with marketing, harder time with sales, harder time with every activity that's going to lead you to then making more money. So the chain collapses in a sense. So, what we're going to be talking about today is market selection, market dynamics. If you're a coach, if you're a creator, if you're a fitness coach, I'm going to be talking specifically on how I was able to pick proper markets and understand, you know, most of your leverage is going to come from being in the right place at the right time. Doesn't matter how hard you work, doesn't really matter even how smart you are, it matters your positioning. Okay. And this is all going to be about positioning because that is the market you're in. If you're a fitness coach, if you don't know who I am, my name is Ashton Hunter. I've scaled multiple fitness coaches to over six figures a month. And today we're going to be talking about these specific strategies in market selection. Okay. So let's jump into it. So, like I said, in business, people don't realize that business is not a game of what to offer, what to sell, what features there are, but it is a game of who. Okay. Not only that, but the fact that picking the right who is one of the most crucial factors for your business's success. If you pick the wrong market, you'll already lose before you get to do any of the work. You can row extremely hard, but if you're in a broken boat or if you're rowing in the wrong direction or, if you have a anchor on your boat, it doesn't matter how hard you're going to row, your boat is just going to stay in the same position. Okay. So picking the right market is very crucial. So my goal in this training is to use the personal insights, the data that I've gained over the last few years to aid you in selecting the best market for your specific individual offer. So this is data from my team. This is data from my past hundreds of clients that I've worked with, fitness coaches, mainly in-person fitness businesses, etc. Okay, so the first thing you need to understand when it comes to selecting your market is business. No matter what you're doing, if you're doing any sort of business, if it's B2B, if it's B2C, if it's whatever it is, business is always people to people. So if you can if you can really understand who you're selling to and understand that avatar, understand that person, understand, how they think, why they think, etc., then you're going to be able to dominate that niche. It's like, for example, going out on a date with a girl and you know what chocolate she likes. So then on the date, you bring the chocolate she likes. And then now you're appealing to her. So just small things like this, if we can understand who we're selling to, we can then, have an easier time targeting. Okay. So like even with your son or daughter, if you know your son or daughter better than they know themselves, you'll be able to make beneficial decisions on top, on behalf of them, right? Like people say, oh, probably when you were growing up, your mom or dad said, oh, I know you better than you know yourself. And it's like, no, mom, you don't, right? But it was true. Okay, they did. So you'll be able to guide them into, what they don't realize they need to be doing. And the same works with business and the same works with your market. So that's the first point that I need to make is you have to like the importance of understanding, like not individually what market to be in, but understanding the market you are in. Okay. And the biggest mistake people make when they're going into business is just simply going after everyone. Okay. So a lot of people say, oh, you don't need a niche. If you have a niche in 2025, you don't need it. Like guys on social media, so many people are saying this right now. Oh, you can do a bunch of them. It's like, yeah, but you can't. You're just going to have a harder time. You're just going to have it affects everything in your business. It doesn't just affect like how much, you know, sales calls you get. It affects everything about your entire operations, like even your back end as well. Okay. So I'm going to tell you why it's actually going to be shooting yourself in the foot. So the key to success in business is to really narrow down and be very specific. Okay. Serve a specific niche. Okay. Trying to appeal to everyone is fighting a battle that's impossible to win. Okay. It's merely impossible to understand specific people or desires if you're going after 100 of them. Okay. You can chase two rabbits, you will catch none, but if you chase one, you will catch one. Okay. This is a lesson that I learned from Sam Ovens when I was in Consulting Accelerator, which is one of his OG sort of programs. If you guys know what that is, then you're probably an OG yourself. But I was in Consulting Accelerator and Sam was very focused. If you don't know who Sam is, he's a founder of School. He also had consulting.com in the past, but he was very adamant on understanding what market you're in and understanding their desires, understanding their pains. And when you are targeting very broadly, then you're kind of like casting a really big net out and you're just seeing what you catch. Okay, you're playing the shotgun approach. You're just spraying and praying. Okay, we want to be snipers. We want to understand exactly who we're going for and be specific with that and understand their desires instead of understanding or trying to understand 100 of their desires. Okay, so by understanding the needs, the desires, and the pain points of a particular group of people, you can tailor your products, your services, your marketing, your sales lingo. Like sales calls will get easier when you actually have one person you're targeting. For example, when I was working and doing a lot of fitness coaching, I was working with, mainly like middle-aged people. And in order for me to actually like sell to middle-aged people, I had to kind of come off as like a kid that you're trying to help. Okay. Even though I'm not a child, okay, I was younger back then, but I had to kind of come off and sell in a way that would appeal to them. And that would only appeal to that specific niche. That's just one example. Okay. If it's multiple, I wouldn't know that because I would have so many different, I wouldn't be able to put two and two together of like, okay, I would have to do this in the sales conversation to achieve the outcome, achieve the sale. Cool. So imagine this. So to give you kind of an example of this, um, this is going to be kind of the market that you're in. Okay. So this outer circle is the fitness industry. So this is the biggest outer circle that all the other circles fall into. So this is the market. You're in the fitness industry. Okay. The next circle, let's say, would be bodybuilders. So it would be the niche within the big market, the niche within the niche. Okay. Then within bodybuilders, there will be female bodybuilders. So now you're taking a niche, you're niching again, and you're niching again, and then you're doing it one more time. Amateur female bodybuilders. You can even do it again. Amateur female bodybuilders who are doing their first show. Okay? So you can pretty much take a market, and instead of going after the entire market, you're taking a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche. You can do that multiple times until you get hyper specific and find a very small market that you can dominate. Okay, so for example, the fitness industry is the largest circle. In this circle, you're basically targeting no one. So you're coming in, oh, I'll help you with anything fitness related. That's what most people do. Like if you're watching this, you're a fitness coach, you're probably just saying, oh, I'll help you with fitness things. Okay. The second circle inward represents a niche within the fitness niche. So bodybuilders, you're getting you're not getting very specific. You're getting somewhat a little bit more specific. The third niche inward represents another niche within the bodybuilding niche, like women, for example. So now you're getting even more. Okay. Then the next will be, that amateur bodybuilding for females. So you're just pretty much, rather than tackling the largest circle and trying to go after this massive audience, this massive market where there's a ton of competition, you're now basically, instead of trying to compete, you're going into a market which you can compete. So instead of jumping into the NFL, you're going to come into a division that you could play in and compete in and win. So we've narrowed down our target to something precise. Okay, so when we try to compete in the largest circle, which is general fitness, this big circle out here with no niching, okay, we're playing a game of darts. Okay, you're going to get people, and this probably has happened to you if you're, targeting a bigger market, or even if you've had a lot of people who are random people from various different niches, want different things, this is going to happen to you. You're going to get people who are like when you're targeting really broadly and you have this big niche, you're going to get people from various niches. You're going to get a male bodybuilder who wants to put on muscle. You're going to get a mom who wants to relieve her hip pain, a dad who wants to get rid of his beer belly, a kid who wants to, put on muscle to stop getting bullied. You're just going to get random people because your targeting is not precise. Okay? And you may say, oh, that's good because I'm getting more people, right? I have people who are like all around. I have a lot of volume maybe. Maybe this will lead to more volume. I'll get more people because my TAM, my market is bigger because I have all these people. I'm getting think about it like darts. You're getting random people everywhere in your market. But what are the disadvantages to this? Okay, so this is pretty much what happens. So when you appeal to everyone, like I said, it's this darts game. So this is your market. You're in general fitness. I'm in coaches and consulting. Or, I help agency owners. Or I help people with fitness. Or I help people get healthy. Whatever it is. Okay. You're getting random people because you're not precise. And because of that, no one is feeling understood and no one's going to resonate with your message. When you call out a specific person, that specific person will respond. When you're at a bus station and you call out, hey everyone, listen, people will look over for a second and then just keep going with their day. Be like, oh, who's this crazy guy? But then if you go to the same bus station and yell, hey John, listen, maybe there's 2 or 3 Johns there. Those guys, maybe the 3 Johns that are, they're gonna come up to you. Hey, did you call my name? Hey, were you looking for me? Okay. So even though you got a bunch of people in the beginning to be like, oh, they look for a second, go back to what they're doing. Oh, who's this crazy guy? You didn't, no one went to the next stage because no one felt understood. Okay. No one felt resonated. But when you're calling out that individual person, there's less people responding, but those people actually feel understood. They feel resonated in a sense to then move to the next level. Okay. So when no one feels understood, you're going to have a harder time getting clients because no one is resonating with your messaging. You have a hard time running ads, hard time doing marketing, hard time doing sales, etc. And because of that, in order to compete, you're going to have to charge less. So you're a non-specialist. You're helping everyone do everything. You're appealing to everyone. Okay. You're a non-specialist. It's like being a surgeon that does cardiac surgery for children. Okay. It's very specialized. They make a lot more money than a general physician. Okay. Why does that happen? Because they are specialized and they have skills within that individual market. So you, who's doing everything, everyone, whatever, you're going to have a harder time getting clients. Because of that, you're going to have to charge less in order to compete. And now people are viewing you as a commodity because you're like charging less to be competitive. You're, oh, I'm not charging too high. I'm not charging too low. I'm charging right in the middle to be competitive. Okay. And now you're viewed as a commodity because the market sees you as disposable. You're replaceable. You're doing you're just trying to compete when no one is feeling really resonated. You're having a hard time getting clients. It all kind of goes from there. And then even on the back end, what happens is because you're getting different processes or different sort of clients, one guy wants to do this, one girl wants to do this, one kid wants to do this, whatever, then you have to make new systems for each of these processes. So that's a huge workload. Okay. If a mom wants to put on muscle and a dad wants to lose his beer belly, you have to now on the back end create a different system for those different goals and those different markets. What does that do? That takes time to do. It's difficult. Like it's not difficult, but it takes labor. It's a laborious activity. And now let's say you have 5 different people or 10 different goals. Okay, 10 different markets with 10 different goals. Now you got to make 10 different programs, 10 different processes, 10 different systems. And then how are you going to validate that that system works when you have 10 different people, just for the sake of the argument, doing different things? How are you going to validate your processes that they're actually working? Okay? You validate a system by running it one time, a lot. Okay? It's kind of like posting one time over 10 social platforms rather than posting on a social platform 10 times. How are you going to see that you're getting any traction over one post over 10 different platforms? Oh, well, no, you can't do that. It's like the Bruce Lee quote. I don't fear the man who practices 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. It's the exact same thing. So we want to run one system several times, hundreds of times to see if it's working. How are we going to get data if we're not running a system, one system multiple times? Okay, and you're not going to get data by doing that. And because of that, because you don't have data, you don't have validation of a system, because you're now doing so many different goals, so many different processes, your clients are not going to get results because the system's not actually built for them. It's built to kind of just serve them in a way. Okay. And then they're not having good, clients are not getting good results because it's not built for them. And then also the cheap price as well. What does the cheap price do? Low emotional investment. They're not going to commit to the actual process. They view you as a commodity, and therefore they will not take the process 100% serious. So what a commodity is if something is the exact same as something else, then the only way to compete would be price. So if I take this coffee, okay, and I go make a bunch of other coffees that are all black coffees, and the product is identical. Forget the branding. The product is identical. you're going to now choose the cheapest option because it's the same product. So that's how people are viewing you. They're like, oh, well, it's kind of the same. It's not specialized. I'm just going to go with whatever. Okay. And I don't know if you guys know what Beachbody On Demand is. It's like a really big online fitness coaching process. The success rate on this process is less than 2%. It's like just almost 1%. It's like 0.9 or something crazy. Okay. Beachbody on Demand is cheap. They charge like, what, 20, 30 bucks a month. Okay. And they target everybody. Okay. It's brutal. It's brutal. So they target everyone. They get viewed as a commodity. No one actually follows through with the process. Okay. And then in order to succeed when you're doing this, when you're doing all these goals with this big market, is with volume. You're not actually helping people. You're not actually helping people get to the next level. You are just pretty much lining your pockets because you're playing the volume game. You're just saying, okay, how many of these people can I get on without actually helping them? Okay. And just push the volume, which can work. You can do the volume, but for the same amount of effort will get you a lot farther when you're specialized. So this leads to you beginning to doubt yourself and lose confidence. And this is what happens to online trainers and coaches and businesses in general when they help everyone. Okay, they simply become a commodity. So they become something that's replaceable, something that's disposable, because there's thousands of clones offering the exact same thing. And inside only one market, you're already competing with every other single mechanism in the market. So for example, if you're coming into this big market, this fitness market, and you're saying, hey, I'll help you with fitness, think about who you're competing. You're competing against like weight loss drugs. You got semaglutide, you got, Ozempic, you got all of these, like even the supplement pills that you can go and get that like stop you eating, epinephrine. Okay, if you guys are bodybuilders, maybe you know what epinephrine is, but you're competing, like if you're coming into this market, you're competing against so many other industries and mechanisms, right? The weight loss drugs, you got supplement companies competing for you, cosmetic surgeons, gyms, in-person coaches, and then you have also the other online coaches. A lot of you guys think, oh, I'm going to be an online coach, and my only other competitor is just going to be other online coaches. Well, that's not true. If I want to lose weight and I'm a mom, I will probably go and check out a couple in-person gyms. I'll maybe think about getting, liposuction, or I'll maybe think about going on semaglutide, and then, maybe I'll look into online coaches. Okay. And now, even worse, without a niche, you're competing against all of them across every single different market. Okay. So what happens is these people, so for example, just to take semaglutide, for example, I work with this company. They're a semaglutide company that sells weight loss specifically for women. Specifically for women. It's like more positioned towards middle-aged women who, want to lose fat and tone up. And they're precise with their marketing. Okay, they're niched. And when you're coming in and you're doing this massive niche, you're now not only competing against the other people who are not niched, you're also competing against the people who are niched. So the moms who want to lose the weight and tone up or whatever, the middle-aged moms, you think they're going to go to the semaglutide company that's precise, or do you think they're going to go to the broad if they actually want to get results? Okay? So you end up competing against every business in the general fitness market that all have the ability to make their customers feel understood, and that's something that you don't. So running your business this way is effectively like playing 1,000 games of chess at once blindfolded. So you're kind of just shooting in the dark. You're playing the shotgun strategy, not the sniper strategy. So unless you've got a massive brand or a 7-figure ad budget where you can outbid people with ads or do strategies with that, which I've done before, but for most people, you have to be hyper specific with your who. You don't want to be anyone's 20th option, or someone's just, I'm going to go with you just because you're the cheapest. Do you think that makes you think about this for a second? If someone's like, let's say they jump on a call with you and then they're like, oh, what's your price? You're like, oh, it's whatever, cheap price. You name a cheap price. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go with you. Yeah, you're way cheaper than everyone else. Therefore, I'm going to go with you. You think that's going to make you feel good as a business owner? Like, think about that. Do you think you think you're going to get that remark and just be like, oh my God, I'm so happy that you chose me because I'm the cheapest option? Hell no. Okay. What? I've had people come to me before and they've been like, Ashton, you know what? I need to work with you. I know it's going to be this much. I need to make the change. I need to do this. I know it's going to be a big investment, but I have to make this transformation. Therefore, I'm going to do it because you're my first option because I know you can help me. That's what you want. You want to be the number one obvious choice for a specific person with a specific pain and desire. Okay, so many people, it pisses me off. Oh, I'm just going to be, I want a bigger market that I can, just help. Therefore, there's more people in my market. I can make more money. It's like, no, it's not true. Even Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, ChatGPT guy, he said, you want to find a market where you can go into and quickly be a monopoly, a small market that you can dominate. You don't want to come into a market and be 0.001% of the market or 0.0001% of the market, like what most of you guys are. You want to come into a small market where you can get a majority stake, where if someone is within that niche, they think, oh yeah, that's the guy. I have the pain, that's the guy. Okay? And it's the same thing like with Toyota and Porsche. If you want a really nice car, okay, think about these are two examples. If you want a really nice car and you're like, I want a really fast car, I want the best car on the market that's going to give me this adrenaline rush, that's going to the fastest, best car. You're going to think of the Porsche, just for example, the Porsche GT3. Okay, it's specialized, it's niche towards that person who wants that outcome. That, crazy thing, the crazy experience, the fast car, the status, the whatever. Okay, whatever comes with that, females, whatever. And then when you go and buy a Toyota Camry, you're like, I'm just going to go buy a Toyota Camry because it's the cheapest option on the market. It's just cheap. It's not specialized. Just Toyota Camry, $10K, whatever. So Toyota is a commodity because they're providing the cheapest, most affordable solution, and they're competing with every other budget-friendly car on the market. When you're going to buy a Toyota, you're like, oh, if the Nissan was $1,000 more, I'll just go buy the Nissan. Okay? But with Porsche, it's specialty. That means you're not fighting on price. There's no constant competition. And they position themselves as the best solution for a specific pain or desire, giving them the ability to scale much faster with far less effort. Therefore, Toyota has to do a lot more volume to make the same amount of money that Porsche makes. Okay, if you go, Toyota is a bigger company than Porsche. I know Porsche is owned by like a bunch of sister companies and car companies and whatnot. But Toyota, like on paper, does more revenue. But per volume, who's making more? Per unit, who's making more? So you have to ask yourself, it's not the company that can necessarily make the most amount of money. It's who can make the most with the least. Who can be the most leverage? This is where leverage comes in. If you can get the most output from the least input, that's the position you want to be in. You want to be the specialist, where instead of saying, oh, and specialized doctor example, oh, if I want to make 100 grand this year, I have to do 10,000 checkups. Okay? So ask yourself, that's one scenario. Then another scenario would be like, oh, if I want to make 10 or 100 grand this year, I just have to do one cardiac surgery. That's the position you want to be in. Okay? So what happens when you do the same? What happens when you go and appeal to one market? So now we're going to jump into kind of the opposite of this. When you appeal to one market, what happens? So instead of taking this large circle, I'm going to help everyone with fitness, or I'm going to be Mr. General, I'm going to be Mr. Generalization, and you narrow it down. I'm not saying you got to do 4 different layers. You can do several more, but you have that tight niche market. What happens is people automatically view you as an expert because you're precise. When you call out that specific person is going to feel understood. They're going to resonate. You can resonate with their pain points. You can get to understand what they're about. You can understand what's the biggest problem that I know they're dealing with. You're going to start to put your head or your feet in their shoes. Okay? And that's going to lead to you have an easier time getting that individual client. Okay? You're going to have you're being that sniper. You can get that individual client because they feel understood. And then now you can charge more because you're the specialist. You don't get paid for what you do, but rather how you do it. And you can put together multi 4-figure packages, multi 5-figure packages, big packages because you're a specialist and people want to work with specialists if they actually want to get results. And that leads to better client results because prospects are coming in. They're having to pay more money to get in. When you pay 10K for a fitness program, you're going to be committed. You're going to follow that diet plan. You're not going to cheat on your diet. you're not going to not go to the gym. Okay? They're invested. They're not going to view you as a commodity, and they're going to be invested in everything you do because that is one thing you do, one process, one system. Okay? Now on the back end, because you have one goal, one system for that one market, you can validate it quickly because you're running one system for one market one time. Or, sorry, not one time, several times for that one pain, desire, goal market. Okay? And because you've ran that so many times, you just refine it. You refine it. You refine it. You're practicing one kick 10,000 times. You're just getting better at that one process. And that process gets so darn good because you've ran it so many times for that individual niche that people will view you as a commodity, or people will view you as an absolute specialist. They will see the results you're getting them. They will want to work with you if they're in that niche. And that leads to less workload because you've validated your systems and because you're doing it for one sort of client. Okay, you don't have to waste your time making. Everyone asks, oh, how do I just stop making programs and automate my programs? Don't use a software, just niche. Niche. Because if you're doing the same thing for every client, then that becomes a lot easier. You're able to refine that. Okay, and this system will quickly become the best in the space because you refined it with so much with one person. Okay, if I'm a spine surgeon, I do 10,000 spine surgeries, I will have a better system to do that one process rather than doing hundreds of random other surgeries. And because of this, you're going to have the ability to leverage your more money and the client results you're getting because you're charging more, etc. And that gives you confidence. That makes you feel good. And then now you're propelling into the universe. You're moving forward with light speed and you are scaling. Okay. So now we're going to be talking about how to actually select your market. How does this work? Because I just talked about why you need to niche, but now I'm going to talk about actually like how to pick your niche. Are there factors in niches? What are certain things that you need to understand about what niche you're going into? And I'm going to kind of give you guys some insight in regards to this. All right, how to select your winning market. So when it comes to building your market or finding your niche, most people think they have to come up with some crazy idea or find some crazy market or find some crazy things. They have to reinvent the wheel. You spend hours, days, months, years thinking and speculating only to never build anything because they get stuck in analysis paralysis mode. This happens a lot of the times. This actually happened with me when I was starting out. It took me like 6 months to actually take any action. I know. But then once I took action, I actually saw results. It's funny how that works. But you should not pick a market you find interesting or one that you've never heard of before, but one that you already have a good understanding with. Okay? One thing you have to realize is this, like, just understand this. Understand that like most people will actually not take action. And yes, you have to pick a good market, 100%. But once you go through these steps, once you actually like go through the steps I'm about to go with and do the factors that we go through, then you're just going to have to make a decision and go with it. Okay? Like thinking more than needs to be thought is honestly a waste of time. Okay? Once you go through the steps and you have your market, then most people will just be like, I've done the work, I've got the dopamine, even though they haven't made any money. So just want to put that out there. Okay? So pick a market. Okay? Think about markets you have a good understanding with. So if you already have niche insights that most people don't, and you know exactly what keeps them up at night, it extremely becomes easy as all that's left is to build a specific solution that solves those problems. So please do not pick a niche you know nothing about or that would take years to try to get feedback from. So it's good to have a base level because the insights that you know about the niche, like for example, if you yourself, which I actually talk about here, if you yourself have done a transformation, let's say you're like a dad and you lost weight, or you're, I don't know, some person who made a transformation, let's say in fitness, right? Or in marketing agency or whatever niche you're in or you're watching this, okay? Pick, like you can use that and sell that because you're living proof that you've already done it. So that, and you understand what it takes. You have insights about that because you've gone through the transformation. So then that allows you to come in with an edge. So understand that, okay? And that's going to allow you to, get more insights and get more data, because the level at which you scale is in direct correlation with how much you know and how much data you know about that market. If you knew everything about the market, you would be able to go and provide an ideal solution and go market it and make $1 million tomorrow. Okay. If you knew the exact pain point, exact everything about the market, what they resonate with, what they don't resonate with, what they think about when they put their head on their pillow, like everything about them, then you can do it. And that's the thing, when you're going into a market that you know nothing about, it becomes a slower process in the beginning, because you need to pick up steam. But if you're already starting, let's say you're at 4, then you have a base, you have insights, and you can go and collect from there. So if you have no sort of like transformation you've done yourself, or you don't know anything about any niche, then you're just gonna have to start, and there's nothing kind of around that. So cool. So the first kind of step in terms of how to pick a market, what market you should be going after, is the first thing is, how accessible is your market? Okay, so this is the first sort of selection thing. So the accessibility of your market is one of the most important criteria of a good business. Okay, if your market doesn't congregate on any specific channel, online, for example, it becomes extremely difficult to sell your product or service, as you'll have a hard time finding your ideal customer. Okay, so if you're an online coach, if your business is online and your crowd is not online at all, like if you're trying to target, if you're a fitness coach online and you're trying to target 90-year-old grandmas, they're not online. They don't have a phone. They don't know what Facebook is. They don't know what Instagram is. So how are you going to go? And in that case, you have to go to senior homes or go to where they congregate and actually find them. Okay. So this is the first step. How accessible is your market? When I was starting and I was in the agency space, I was kind of deciding between, should I target a supplement company? Should I target supplement companies? Or should I target gyms? And after kind of deliberating on this for a bit, I tried to do some outreach to supplement companies. And I realized, I was like, it's so difficult to reach a decision maker in a supplement company. Like, most of them are really big. Like, most of them, like, you can go to their website, you can find like an email, maybe like a customer support email, send an email to them, ask for another person. It becomes really difficult. It takes a lot of effort. It was hard to reach. But then with gyms, I could go on Google Maps and just literally look up gyms near me, Toronto, gyms near me, Chicago. And then there would be a massive list that I could just go, click the Google reviews, find the owner, call, boom. Hey, can I have John? Hey, can I have Amy? Cold call, boom. I was accessible. That's what allowed me to have my first level of kind of like, momentum with that. So you have to ask yourself, can you actually access your market? This is a really big thing, because if you can't, no matter how good your sales is, no matter how good your copy is, whatever, your marketing, your program, if you can't access them, they won't see it. Okay, so can you find your client, your ideal client? And 80% of marketing is simply locating your ideal client. Okay, like if you go on, to like a high level, I went to this like really high level kind of like showing. It's like a car showing. And there were ads there for like really expensive products like Louis Vuitton. There was like designer brands. There was like high-end car parts or car dealers that were high-end. Those marketers of these, let's say, designer stuff and high-end stuff knew that their market would be at this high-end show. So they located where they would be. Okay. But if you can't make that location process and you can't find your client, it's difficult. Okay. So for example, let's say you start a business that's helping in-person chiropractors. You can easily go online, look up chiropractors near me on Google Maps, like I did with the gyms, and you will find, a list of hundreds. On the contrary, let's say you want to help old people. Okay. They don't have a phone. These people would be harder to find you, and you would need to go in person to locate them. It's difficult, right? So every market has its pros and cons. Therefore, your focus shouldn't be on finding the perfect market, but finding the market that is the most accessible. This is very important. Okay, this is probably where a lot of your leverage comes in. If you can pick a market that is the most accessible, then you can get through and make a lot of money with that market with mediocre marketing and mediocre systems and a mediocre program, because it's accessible, because you can kind of get in there with volume. Cool. So, like I said, I've scaled multiple fitness coaching offers over 5 figures a month, 6 figures a month by being able to locate the ideal clients who need the products or service and by solving a painful problem. Okay, which brings us to our next question. So, first thing is, can we locate them? Accessibility. Number two is, how painful is the problem and how important is the solution? So, what you need to ask yourself is, your solution nice to have or is it a must have for that person? Okay. The level of pain in which you're solving for will dictate the amount of urgency people will have towards your service. And urgency will also bring money into the equation. Okay. So, for example, let's say I cut your arm off, machete, and I said to you, hey, you're in pain right now. Clearly, you're missing your arm. I will restitch it on and grow you back your arm for 100 grand. You, with your arm cut off, you're in pain, you're scared. Oh my God, my arm. You're going to be like, yeah, sure, take my money. I don't care if I don't have the money. I'm going to put on my credit card. I'm going to finance it. I'm going to go to the bank, get a loan. I need my arm back. Okay, because you're in pain. High pain, you're going to take a lot of action. You're going to feel urgency. You can set your prices higher. People are going to go because there is pain there to be solved. People want to change. Help them change. Okay? So you should try to not sell things that are try to sell things that are must-haves. Okay? Anything that your market can live and thrive without. Okay? So in low urgency markets, there's rarely a strong reason to act now. Your offer feels like a luxury, easy to ignore and easy to delay. Like when you go to Louis Vuitton, for example, it's a very low urgency market. People don't go to Louis Vuitton because they are in absolute pain and they need to buy a Louis Vuitton purse. They're not like that. They're going in and they're like, yeah, it's pretty low urgency. I have some money. I kind of want it. Why not? Okay. And for example, if you look at the healthcare space, like medicine, that is built off of pain because the most painful solutions cost the most amount of money. If you're going in and you're getting your arm stitched up, what does that cost? A couple $100? And then let's say you go and you're like, hey, I need to get, or you have a heart attack or whatever, and you need to get cardiac surgery. Okay, that's going to be a lot more money because the pain is higher. Okay, so all in all, prospects are busy, distracted, and constantly bombarded with options. If you're not at the top of their priority list of the things they need to change now, you're out of sight and out of mind. And this is the thing with fitness coaching is a lot of fitness coaches, they position themselves as being luxury. They don't position themselves as being like in a market where people are actually in pain. And with fitness, it's like, I could lose some weight, whatever. Like, I don't need to, or whatever. And they're after, like most coaches are after these markets that are just like, it's just, there's no pain there. And they maybe try to convince themselves, maybe from their point of view, like the coach's point of view, they feel like, oh my God, you need to change. You should be in pain, but they're not. And their solution is an invoking pain in them. Okay? So that's why chasing saturated spaces where buyers have no urgency, endless alternatives, and no problem postponing is a losing game. So instead, select a problem where pain is sharp and the need is immediate. So in high pain, lower competition markets, people don't stall or overanalyze. They have a clear reason to act, and that urgency is what makes them more likely to prepay, commit, find another way to finance it if they can't afford it, take a mortgage out of their house, and stay focused on the outcome without sweating every minor detail that comes up. To create this must-have offer, your offer market that you're in needs or they can achieve their goal. Okay, you must first clearly define a painful problem that your niche experiences. Your niche will have a bunch of different options. Remember, they have all of these different niches, but not all problems are equal. Your job is to find and focus on solving one of the primary problems, so the most important problem, and create the most impactful outcome as you need to deliver these results. So what I mean by the most important problem is every niche will have a priority of what is the most painful thing or what is the most important thing for them to do. What I mean by this is, let's say you are helping moms get in shape. Okay. Moms, let's say they would pay more money to lose, let's say 30 pounds and reverse aging compared to, oh, let me just help you, with a diet, or let me help you lose 5 pounds. Okay, so it's a bigger, more primary problem. I'm going to give you a gym example because this is what I did when I was working in the gym space. And I still have gym clients, but I realized that gym owners don't really want more members. What is a member bring? 20, 30, 50 bucks a month? Who cares? They wanted one-on-one personal training sessions. That's where the money is. Okay? High ticket clients. So I went to the gyms. I said, hey, everyone's offering more memberships. Let me get you more high ticket consultations and let me book them directly into your calendar. Primary problem, primary solution. What do these people say? Oh my God, yeah, sure. I'll try it out. It was a no-brainer, okay, because it was the primary problem. There was pain to solve that problem. Cool. So I hope that makes sense. So that's number 2. So how painful is the problem? How important is your solution? Okay, if there's no importance, it's difficult. Okay. The next is supply and demand. So for the problem you select, there's a demand of that problem being solved, and there's a supply of the solutions. So when you find your individual problem, you're going to have to see the demand and supply for that problem. So what I mean by this is, let's say in your market, let's say there's different supply and demand balances. Okay. If there's more demand than there is supply, then if you go into that market and provide a supply for the demand, you are going to immediately fulfill the demand and make money. Example, you're a millionaire. It's an imbalance. If there is more supply than there is demand, then you are now in a hyper-competitive market. For example, real estate agents. There are so many real estate agents around where I live. Everyone is, I'm going to be a real estate agent. Like, there's so many. Okay. Drop shipping. Make money online with drop shipping. Like, stuff like this. A lot of competition, a lot of other people doing it. Maybe the supply is bigger than the demand. And then for the third scenario here, it would be the car market, where the demand and the supply are balanced. Okay, there are tons of car brands, but there's also tons of demand for cars. Okay? So when exploring markets and looking at the supply and demand, you should be thinking about 2 things. How many others have entered similar markets as this? And is this market craving a solution different from others? This is not something that you can simply sit around and speculate about. That will only maybe get you 10% of the way. This is something that you gain insight about when you talk to the market and interact with the market. Okay, so you want to find a winning market, but you shouldn't wait for the perfect market with zero competition to emerge. Okay, and the thing is, even though a market with much more supply than demand becomes highly competitive, competition isn't always a bad thing. It can make it easier to get results. Why? Because you don't have to pick a niche where no one else is, and you'll have a harder time educating the entire market on why your solution matters. You're going to have to get everyone problem aware and then get everyone solution aware of your mechanism. However, in markets where competition already exists, that burden is gone. You don't need to explain why your solution is important, only why it's better or different. And when there's other people in your, you shouldn't pick a market where there's absolutely zero supply, because if there's a lot of supply, that shows as well that there probably is a lot of demand most of the time. If there's a lot of car dealerships out there, that shows that there's a lot of people who probably want cars. If there's a lot of houses out there, that probably shows that there's a lot of people who want to live in houses. So the supply and demand kind of go hand in hand. And when there's a high supply, there's usually a demand to follow, but there are, scenarios where that could be different. And when there's no one else in your market, you got to educate everyone. You got to go and put a lot of effort into that, which can cost a lot of money and a lot of time. So, especially if you're starting out, don't lose time trying to find a blue ocean. Okay, no competition market, and instead swim in the red ocean and become a shark. Pick a problem that's more important. Pick a painful, more primary problem. And one thing you have to remember is it doesn't matter how much demand there is if the market simply can't afford your service. So this is the next sort of step that we're going to be jumping into. So what we went through already is number 1, okay, can your market access? How painful is the problem? Supply and demand. Now we're going to be talking about, does your market have buying power? Okay, it's because this is the next step. If your market doesn't have buying power, if they can't afford your solution, then what's going to happen? You're just going to go and make a bunch of pitches and no one's going to buy. So almost everyone over 18 is able to pay for things they care about. Therefore, the goal isn't to only sell to people who are full of money. Okay, keeping that in mind, it's up to you to sell to a market that can actually afford your solution. Okay, you can sell perfectly, perfect sales script, perfect, excuse me, perfect marketing, everything. Get them on the call, get them to say yes, and they can't afford it. Now you're screwed. If they actually don't have the money and they're not giving you some BS objection, then you can't really do much. Okay, so for example, market one is poor. They want and need your service badly. The demand is higher than the supply. Therefore, there's lots of area for you to come in. And 85% can't afford to pay your price. It's difficult. You're now back in the volume game to try to find that 15. Okay. Market two, they want and need your service badly. Same demand and supply, but 85% can afford your service. You should be into that market. Okay. This way you'll have less resistance and more fun helping them solve their problems. They will also be more grateful for your help and more willing to implement and stick with the process because they can actually afford your solution. And it's not like some people when they come in and they're like, oh, this is my last dollar. It's difficult. It's very difficult because when you're like targeting this really kind of poor market and people are spending their last penny, they take action, but like there's more pressure on you and there's unnecessary pressure on you in a sense. Okay. So targeting a broke market also limits how much money you can actually make. If you're a big production company with tons of startup capital, then sure, you can play the volume game and that could work. But if you're trying to hit 100K a month by coaching 100 people at $100 each as a solo coach or even with a team, that's brutal. It's a nightmare. How can I do that? Even Alex Hormozy says, instead of doing 100 people at $100 each, I would much rather do, if I want to be a millionaire, I'd much rather do a $10,000 program, okay, and do that 100 times. Can I sell $10,000 100 times? If I can do that, I'm chilling. I can make my money. So why is this unrealistic? So people won't actually get real results. People will not take and treat you seriously with low investment. You're going to try to lower prices. That's just going to lower their commitment. Required to have a system that supports volume and lower margins. So on the other end, targeting a market with money is hands down one of the fastest ways to generate a ton of sales and have the ability to charge high ticket. This is what I do when I work with a lot of with fitness coaches that I work with. I'm trying to find one of the markets that has the most amount of money. Just to throw you a little Easter egg here. White collar professionals is a pretty good niche. People who are executives, people who are high level investment bankers, white collar people who are making over 100 grand a year. It's a good niche. They can afford to spend 5 grand, 6 grand, 10 grand on a program. Okay. If they see the value. So not to mention, you're actually able to get your clients results. For example, if your goal is 20K a month and the offer is $200 a month, that means 100 clients, a lot of volume. Fulfilling 100 clients one-on-one isn't possible. So most resort to selling your ebooks, your info products, things that you don't have to actually be hands-on with. Okay, which all end up having a less than 1% success rate. And over time, if none of your clients are getting amazing results, your business slowly fades out into nothing. So for example, what happens is a lot of course creators, and you'll see this happen. Like you'll see a course creator come, they'll blow up, they guarantee the success, and they blow up like crazy. They make a ton of money, but slowly after 1 to 2 years, they'll fade into nothingness. Okay. So they'll just kind of come and go. They'll come and go because their success rate is so low. Okay. And you need to be charging high ticket for success rate, and you need to be able to actually sustain that volume. If this cup can only hold 100 milliliters and I'm trying to put 300 in here, there's no point. Go and fix the cup first and then pour the water. Okay. So therefore, the importance of creating a valuable transformation and choosing a market that can afford it leads to less objections, leads to more commitment, and leads to better results and more case studies, more money for you to leverage, more money for you to put back in your company, and etc. So once all these pieces are in place and you have everything here, okay, all these steps that we went through, buying power, supply and demand, painful solution, accessibility, okay, once you have all of these, okay, It's time to step back and look at your options with a clear strategic lens. And this is where the next step comes in, okay? Which is all about ranking your markets, okay? So at this point, you should have a market or markets in mind that fit the criteria and that you are willing to pursue, okay? You must look at these options strictly from an objective point of view. Doesn't matter if you believe the market to be saturated or you don't really want to work with these people. This is a matter of which is the highest ranking to move forward with. Oftentimes what we want to do is influenced by the external. Okay, we have, ourself, and then we're influenced by family, family's influenced by friends, community, our nation, humanity. Everything is like, this is another thing I learned from Sam Ovens. A lot of perspectives that we have are not our perspectives, they're perspectives that have been downloaded into our brains. Okay, and they get influenced by others and end up settling into a losing market. Okay, so understand that if you decide to pursue your market, the first thing that comes to your mind, you are temporarily saying no to every other market for the time being. Some of market number one, number one market, meaning the best ranking market, the market that ranks the highest for all of these that we went through, all of these factors. You're temporarily saying no to every other market for the time being. Okay, some could be more lucrative, but you have to make that commitment. So therefore, it's crucial you make this decision objectively and logically and select the market you believe is best and not what everyone else says to do. So what I do within my company is, let me just pull this up, is we go ahead and we rank our individual markets. So we have a bunch of different kind of mechanisms here. Can they afford it? Can we guarantee success? I added in a couple others for, some of my clients. And for example, white collar executive males, can they afford it? Easily. Can we guarantee them success? 100%. Can we find them? They're, on social media, 100%. Okay. Are there other people offering to this crowd? I'm going to say not none. Okay. Is the market growing? Sure. Okay. And I added in a couple others, but those are the main ones that you're going to need, the ones that we went through before. And then you're going to see which one ranks the highest and then make your objective decision. Okay. So you have to make your objective decision from that and then move forward with it. Okay. The thing is, like, a lot of people, they'll really get hung up on like, oh, I just kind of want to do this market because it seems cool. It's like, okay, it's cool to you, but what's cooler? Okay. Do we want to make money? Do we want to scale? Okay. Do we actually want to be in a really good market where we can capitalize on, or do we want to be in a market that we find cool? Make your decision. So, niche selection checklist. Okay. Have I solved the problem for myself or know anyone else who's created a perfect solution for the problem? So these are things that you can go through on your own time. Can I locate them organically? Do I know something that the rest of the market isn't aware of? This is unique insights. Okay. Do I know things about this niche that others don't know about this niche? What is the market's desired outcome? What have they been trying to achieve this desired outcome? What have they been trying to do to achieve this desired outcome? And what have been their obstacles? Is the problem painful? Is it valuable to solve? And can they afford my solution? If you can go through and check all of these off and figure these out, you will have a good niche. Once you've narrowed down to the best option, don't overthink it, pull the trigger, and move forward. Too many people get stuck between a few niches. Oh, I'm going to try both at once. What? I'm going to divide my energy into two. That's what you're saying. Because both niches, this is the thing, both niches will somewhat work. Okay? You do a good niche and a bad niche at the same time, you will probably get some results with the bad niche still. Okay? But it's leverage long term. Business is a long term game. Long term, you're going to be screwed. So pick one, put all your energy into one, put all of your eggs into one basket and go with it. You can always pivot later. The old way of building companies meant locking, in your market like it was set in stone, but that's no longer the case today because you can always shift. Okay, especially online business, you can easily shift. You don't have a storefront with a massive employment team and patents. Okay, you don't have that. So cool. So how do you actually validate your market? So now that you have your market, I guess, situated, you understand what you're doing, what are the next steps to move forward after you have this set? Okay, so the old way of building companies was the following. Okay, so this is actually what I got from Sam Altman. He actually has a bunch of really good Harvard lectures. You can actually go and listen to them. But the old way of pretty much building a company is, you go and you have your concept, You bring it, you make your product, you make your service, you go do some testing, and then you go and launch it. So it's a concept. The old way is a concept. Like you have your concept, you have to build it out first, you build everything, and then you go and test and launch. Okay. So number one, you have your concept stage. You turn your passion into a business plan, you make your hypothesis, you do your product service development, you launch your marketing or whatever, you do your testing, and then you launch after you do all that work. The main difference between the product development model, which is the old way, and the new way, which I'm going to share with you here, is that it doesn't assume everything will be as forecasted. Okay. When have you looked at the forecast and it said rain coming and rain hasn't come? Sometimes. Okay. But we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So each step of the new model is shown as a circular track because, unlike the old way, it understands that the process needs to be iterated based on feedback, and finding the right customers in the right market likely won't happen on the first attempt. Okay. The customer development model assumes that it will take several iterations of each of the 4 steps until you get it right. So what happens is, in the new way, is instead of going and building everything out with your concept, you are going to the customers first. You have your niche, you understand what niche you're in, but that's not all the work. You have to go and validate this. You have to go and chat with the niche. Okay. Get some validation. Okay. And once you're talking to customers, okay, excuse me, once you're talking to customers, you're understanding what the process is, what they like, what they don't like, psychographics, where they situate, what they spend their time, like everything about them. You're gathering data. And then from there, you're trying to make a validation, or you're trying to push them towards moving with your solution. And if they actually see the value in it, based off of that, they will move forward. And they'll be like, oh, where's the process? Where's the program? You just simply say, yeah, we're in the building stage. I'm going to collect a deposit from you. And, $2,000 for your deposit, or whatever money for your 50% deposit. And then you're going to get your program in a week. That's exactly what I did with all my, a lot of the companies that I worked with. Is we go and we pitch, we collect, like when the company collect like 50 grand. And then after we collect 50 grand, we tell everyone, hey, we're going to be reaching out to you in roughly 2 weeks. Reach out to them in 2 weeks. After the process is built, spend some time building it out, 2 weeks to build it out, whatever, go and do it and run your system, and the system gets better over time. So what happens is, first step is finding the customer niche, the problem you believe to be solving for them. The goal here is to prove if your niche, problem, and offer hypothesis are correct. Okay, so prove if all of these steps that we went through up here, are they correct? Okay. The only way of doing this is to gather real feedback from the market on your product or service, problem, and ideal consumer. Okay, so a lot of people think oh yeah, no, Ashton, no, white collar professionals, they're all rich. Okay, you think that, let me go test it. Let me go talk with people. Oh wait, there's a recession right now. Everyone in finance is broke. Okay, you don't know that. So you're running this process. Okay, so number 2 is customer validation. So the goal of this step is to prove that you have a set of customers in a niche that react positively with your service or product. Validation happens when you're able to relieve your customers of some of their money. Once that's proven, the next step is to build your sales roadmap, which is going to be a repeatable playbook based on what's already field tested to sell your product or service. Okay. So the best form of validation is if someone will give you money to solve a problem, because that means it's important for them. If you get a sale, that's a validation. Number 3 is customer creation. So it's at this step where you fire up your engines after getting in a few sales and proving and validating your hypothesis. Now you go heavy on marketing, create demand, and drive demand into your sales channel. And then, once you have even more data, etc., you can then even build even more scale, etc. Okay, so it all starts with talking to the customer, going and validating, maybe getting some sales up front, and then building it after you have that validation. Because most people, they'll just go and they'll build everything first. And this one guy, he reaches out to me. He's like, yeah, I'm building up my program. He's been building it out for the past 2 months. I'm like, okay, have you talked to any customers yet? Nope. I'm making it perfect. Well, how do you know what's perfect? How many customers have gone through it? Have 100 customers gone through it and given you feedback on your process? No. Are you just building it off of what you think to be good? This is a big misconception. A lot of people, oh, well, if I think it's good, then it's probably good. No. You are not them. You are not your customers. Okay? And they waste time because then they go and launch it. People don't resonate with it. It affects your marketing. And now it's annoying. Okay? It's annoying. So go sell first, get validation, get customers, then build after. And then once you have your customers for that thing, then you can, after doing all that work, you can then go build it. It's not going to be perfect. Then you can run your customers through it. Then the more customers you run through your process, you will get more feedback. Okay? Cool. So, what is the overall process? So, number one, are you specialized in one market? Do you have experience in this market? Okay. Do you have some base level of unique insight? I'm just going to repeat this. You don't need to have experience, but I think it does help. Okay. Can you access this market? Is your service a must-have? Is the problem you're solving for a primary solution? Is the supply and demand healthy? Can they afford your service? Then go and rank your markets objectively, select your market to test, and then we do something called seed conversations. So we do this first step of customer discovery is talking to your customers. So my clients, I get them to go and reach out to warm connects, people who they know. Let's say they're targeting white collar professionals. Okay, my aunt's a white collar professional. My dad works a white collar job. This person works a white collar job that I know, my friend. You go reach out to these people. You talk to them. You ask all of them, hey, do you know anyone else that I could talk to regarding this? You then go talk to, let's say all these people know 2 people that they give you. Okay. Four people initially turn into now 4 plus 8. Can I at 12? Those 8 people all give you 2 more. Now you have 16 plus 8 plus 4. Okay. It's not bad. Now you can really just start to talk to people, try to pitch it, see how they resonate. Okay. Then you can pull your trigger after you've done some conversations. You can test even more, and then you can build from there. So it's all about having data. So the thesis of this is the best market is the market that you know the most about and the market that you have the most data within. Because you can go into a really bad market, but if you know a lot about that market, very competitive market, you know a lot about the market, a lot about the consumers, then that market now turns into a market that you can actually capitalize on. So you need data. You need data. Okay. So in conclusion, it's extremely important to be cutthroat with your decision and understand that the market you enter will dictate your success more than any other factor within your business. Of course, there are many other factors that once bootstrapped onto your market will result in leveraged success or lack thereof. Okay, your niche, your offer, your marketing, etc. Remember, when you are selecting a niche, it will not be the niche itself that will fail. It will be the specific offering within that niche that can allow you to scale effortlessly. Run the exercise and ensure that you have a niche that suits the following requirements in terms of growth, money to spend, pain, and etc. Your niche is not something to be taken lightly. Many people rush into the niche before talking with the market and genuinely seeing what the market wants. Your success within a niche will be determined by the insights, the data you gain regarding the niche, not by aimlessly jumping into a niche that will magically turn out to be profitable. You see a lot of kids online, oh, I just made a lot of money really quickly. They are the magic people. Okay, a lot of them just jumped into random niches and made a lot of money. Some of them actually did calculated approaches. But data is what you should be going after. Even if you're talking with people and they're not interested, that's data. If people tell you to F off, that's data. Everything is data that's going to lead you more to the next kind of step. Okay? So if you haven't already watched episode 1 of the series, I highly recommend watching the next. So this is all about market selection, market dynamics, etc. I've already made that video about specifically your offer, how to pretty much build your offer. And because without pairing a good offer, none of this will really matter, because you need to figure out a good offer for that individual market. So I'll link the offer one below, and you will be seeing the following videos coming out. This is going to be a multi-part series, and I hope you guys got some value about learning about what market you should be in and how to choose different markets. Thanks for watching.